the repilot, which happened, God, what, like 12 months later? I think initially you and I spoke to each other at the time, quite soon after, being like, we should turn this into an actual thing. And a year later, we sort of got on. But I don't think that we were really out of lockdown restrictions properly and stuff either. So it wasn't really something that we tangibly could have done. And also, we didn't have studio space at the time. There was nowhere for us to be doing it. But when we did go back into it, I feel like I overcompensated, because instead of doing what we did in that initial pilot, when we repiloted, it was like, right, they're playing this game for 20 minutes. Yeah, 2 hours. And it was, and the show came out at 2 hours. And
trying to fill the voids.
Well, when I did those episodes, especially the first ones, and I guess this was when, again, we hadn't quite figured out that we were an LGBTQ show in that repilot. And so for us, it's interesting because it's definitely spun off from another project that I was doing, which is I was producing a podcast called All Right Darling. And in that it was like drag racers, and we had people like Katia and our first ever guest was Katia. We were really lucky in that there was good listenership, and it was a project that I really enjoyed doing, but I got quite tired of doing it. It was a lot of work, and personally I didn't feel like I was getting out of it what I wanted to get out. But then when this sort of opened up, and I was like, hold on, there are people that I know that I have in like my books, as it were. And I was like, why aren't we getting these people on to our show? Why are we getting, and like, no offense to the people who are on the early episodes, but it wasn't the same. They were just, it felt like Chaz and Dave from down the road who are just coming on and playing some video games.
Just get actual entertainers to come and entertain.
Yeah, the thing is with that though, and as much as we love you, drag queens, you're all terrible at video games. Yeah. I'm not sure if anyone's had a word yet, but
you can work on that,
yeah, maybe try playing the games before. But that's kind of not, it's not really why we're there, because it's about just the silliness of it. Yeah. And as you say, it's like getting those entertainers on.
Yeah, and the little jokes, and then I'm definitely just entertained. I get lost in the fun. Yeah.
So one of the things is that I wanted to ask you is, obviously we had, we've just jumped from season 1, had a big tournament. Now there was the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet tournament. Yeah. I know that you got quite a lot of inspiration from that for things that needed to be changed, or things that you liked that we did within the production for that. Do you want to talk a little bit about sort of the changes that you've implemented across the 2 seasons?
I mean, we definitely kept the layout. So the layout during the Pokemon was completely different from the layout from season 1.
So this is like the set layout, where people are sat.
Yeah, and where the cameras, and I think that works a lot better. And it looks better as well.
I agree. It does look better. It looks much better. It feels more spacious. Everything was like cramped into one corner before. Yeah. Again, if people listening want to have a look, I mean, you can just look at it and you can see that we are just all crammed into a corner of a room. Whereas now it's spread out across the room, and there's a separate player area.
Yeah. What else? What did we do Pokemon that we didn't do in season 1? I mean, Pokemon was like it's a whole different thing, wasn't it? Though
this was it. It was.
It's only a contained.
It felt like, because it was level up in essence of what we were doing and the location, but actually we still had to rebuild all of our assets.
8 people. We usually have 2.
Yeah, we did. Well, getting 8 people through that studio and competing. I've got to give it to. So we have a camera operator and a floor manager called Rob. I've got to give it to him, because he was there wrangling slightly drunk drag queens, as and trying to get them to and from the studio, and then load up their switches and get them into the right place. I could see it out of the corner of my eye as I was like having chats to particular people, him swooping in. I've got to give it to him. That was really good.
Yeah, it was really good.
So I suppose the last thing that I really want to mention about is sort of the graphic change, and I think that really spearheaded us into like a new visual identity, which is where we're at now. Unfortunately, Maddie, I think we're out of time.
Oh no. Well,
I know.
have to tune
That's
in for the next one.
flown by, hasn't it? So, goodbye to everyone, and feel free, if you want to check us out, you can find us on YouTube at Level Up Live. That's 1EVE1 Up Live. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so I guess we should start by introducing ourselves. So, do you know what? I'll be a gentleman, and I'll let you go first.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm Maddie, and on Level Up, I produce, I vision mix, and sometimes I direct.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I asked you like I didn't know that, and yet I already knew that. So my name is Kobe, and I'm an equine chiropodist. No, not really. So I'm a producer on Level Up. I also do script writing. I've done the technical build on the studio for the show. I've also created 2D assets and VT and filming. It's anywhere I can help, really. I get involved, as you know.
All at once.
As you know. Well, I feel like that's very much how Level Up is, though.
Yeah.
It's very much sort of all hands on deck, anyone that we can get on board. And for anyone who doesn't know, and I guess talking to anybody who might be listening, Level Up Live is an inclusive LGBTQ video gaming live stream, and it used to be home on Twitch, but we've now just recently moved over to YouTube. And it's sort of developed a bit of a local community around the show.
Definitely.
And it's definitely evolved, because I think initially when we sort of came up with the idea, you came up with quite a lot of the concepts of what the show was. So I know that when we were coming up with it, I posed the idea to you about doing a video game show, and then you came back to me with a format that's not dissimilar to what we use now, but just much miniature.
Different.
How did you get to that? How did you get to that version of Level Up? What are your initial thoughts on the process?
I can't even remember that much. I definitely spoke to the group I was in. So we kind of came up with the idea, okay, we need to have a certain amount of games. I think it was 3 at the time. And we need to do like the exciting ones, like, I don't know, Mortal Kombat, or like the fighters, or like the drive-in, something that would actually get people to watch it. And I don't think we have that much of a choice at the time either.
No, so so for a bit of context, I was working with, mostly remotely, a few people that were in little production teams, but this is during COVID, so that we were meeting online, and you must have been in like a group of maybe 6 people, 5-6 people, and that we were all working remotely together, figuring out, well, how do we make this content? How can we do it, and how can we be safe in doing it, and how can we really strip back what you need in a studio to do it? How many people were required, and where could people do things from? And actually for us, we were really fortunate, because from my perspective, when we were thinking about the technology behind it, I had worked with some people previously who were from a company called Mavis Broadcasting, and what was incredible about them is that they were coming up with these IP solutions that were able to essentially allow bunches of my production team to be in totally different places. So we had one person who was working from China, and that they were able to be involved as part of this like initial production process for essentially the pilot for our show. And it was really interesting working with that emerging technology, and I think when we were able to all come together and get to use it, it was clear actually that it was like something quite special when we were using it. How did you feel? Because I guess you hadn't had too much of experience with the traditional gear. How did it feel when you saw the difference between the sort of two systems?
I feel like I'm more of the digital, the cloud kid.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We've got a new generation of people now where like Yeah, so for me, it's definitely, I'm still very much like, I love a bit of hardware, I love the tactileness of it all, but there is a whole gen, like, and I think that you're one of them where you're like, I love this stuff, it's in the cloud, having a surface, and literally doing everything from that one screen. Crazy. You must have your mind in a million different places, because at least when I do it, it's like, it's just me sat at like one mixing desk or like a vision mixer. Cool, so you were saying, so we got into the groups and we were limited on the games.
Honestly, I can't remember that much, but we kind of like...
You've tried to block out all of that period of time.
Yeah.
We forgot about COVID, it's all just a distant memory.
It's definitely a blur. But I feel like we definitely made some changes along the way as we were blocking it out or rehearsing it, because we're like, oh, maybe this works, maybe this doesn't work, and then we just kind of got to a point where we're like, okay, we like this, we're just gonna go with it.
So when we did it initially as well, Level Up was a 20-minute show. It was really quick. It was really quick fire. All of the video gaming in it was like 60 seconds, 120 seconds. It was a really quick fire round. But again, I hosted that one, and it felt really difficult in the studio because we were almost too confined in everything that we're doing, which I guess is when we looked at it for the repilot, which happened, like 12 months later? I think initially you and I spoke to each other at the time quite soon after, being like, we should turn this into an actual thing. And a year later we sort of got on, but I don't think that we were really out of lockdown restrictions properly and stuff either, so it wasn't really something that we tangibly could have done. And also, we didn't have studio space at the time. There was nowhere for us to be doing it. But when we did go back into it, I feel like I overcompensated, because instead of doing what we did in that initial pilot, when we repiloted, it was like, right, they're playing this game for 20 minutes. Yeah, 2 hours. And it was, and the show came out at 2 hours. And
we're trying to fill the void